Good afternoon, everyone. This is Pradeep from GETI, Lucknow, the Global Education Training Institute. And you are on our disruptive education platform. We are very grateful to Dr. Sunita Gandhi, our mentor, for having provided this platform where we meet educationists from India and all over the world. We've had more than 750 interactions of this kind so far. And today, we are very happy to have with us Tasneem Khan. She is an educationist trainer consultant in Medchal, Telangana. Ma'am, correct me if I'm wrong.
Telangana, sir.
Yeah. So she is an education and training consultant, ardent educator, avid learner, and author. She's a teacher, trainer, and mentor, and a pro bono contributor. That means she contributes without taking any money. She has over 20 years of academic and training experience in diverse areas. She has worked with reputed educational institutions, elite colleges, and highly professional training and research institutions. She started as a lecturer in Hyderabad. She believes that parents should befriend children as children get independent quite early nowadays. She is currently doing her MA in education. She is a member of the Telangana Parents Association for Child Rights, Hyderabad, and vice president of the Indian Parents Association for Hyderabad. She has worked with reputed educational institutions in Saudi Arabia and has authored mathematics books for pre-primary to class 5. She will be speaking on parents need to stop forcing their own dreams on their children. So thank you, ma'am, for being with us, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Pradeep, sir. Happy evening, happy early evening to all my viewers today. Assalamu alaikum. May the peace of Almighty be upon all of you. Today, we are, and I would like to thank Mrs. Sunita Gandhi, the GETI Learn, for giving me this particular opportunity of speaking on such an important perspective, especially at the kind of a right time that we basically are in, when the children are approaching their exams, are finishing up with the, we have the 10th finishing up with their exams, the IGCSE students have finished up with their exams, and most of the students are at the verge of choosing a particular stream of education to pursue for their professional growth. So when I'm here, I would like to start this particular conversation with you with regards to what is it that you want for your children. I would like to, I would want all of you to type in the chat box that you have here, so that I may be able to find out as to what is it that, if we have parents here joining me, then I want parents to write what is it that they want for their children in the future. The next, if I have students here, I would want them also, the students or children who are there joining me, I would want them to write what is it that they basically want in their future, basically, what with perspective of the career that they would like to choose. So when we are talking from the perspective of being an educator, being a parent, what is it that we basically want when we see children? How do the children come to a conclusion about a profession? Is what my question was in specific to be. To you know, how does a child come to a conclusion about what he needs to choose? And at what age do the children, because I told you the children are becoming quite aware at this particular kind of conditions that we are in, and the way disruptive education has taken place. Earlier we would need a slate, a blackboard, a chalkboard. Now we need a tablet, we need digital pens, and all these kind of things. The kind of devices also that we are using currently in education system has currently changed, undergone a sea change, especially in the current academic year, especially with the pandemic situation. Now when the child is in a situation or in a place where they've finished their examinations of 10th and they have to choose a particular career, what are the factors that go into what are the factors that influence a child, and what are the factors that influence a parent while choosing a career path for a child, and how much of is there is a congruence, how much of a congruence is there between both the ideas, both the parent and the child's ideas. Do they ever talk, do they ever sit, do they ever discuss? We happen to see that generally this thing happens quite early, very very early in life, where the child is born, and sometimes even before sometimes the child is born, his parents are very excited about what the kind of things that he needs to choose, the kind of things that the child needs to pursue basically. And more so in houses where there are politically especially because we had this particular system ki, the caste system especially, which prevailed in India especially, which led to children pursuing the same field of a career or a professional this thing choice with what the parents have basically chosen for themselves. That is because of the fact that earlier situations where the children were not exposed to a lot of careers, and moreover the opportunities also were very less. The society was also preventive of the fact that they wouldn't allow a shudra, for example. If you remember the Ekalavya story, where he was a very good archer, but he was never allowed to learn archery, so he had to put up a guru and learn archery because of that. And the caste system and the society basically didn't allow. But now we do not live in such a particular society. Everybody has the choice, everybody has their own this thing, they have their own resources. And especially the other day when we saw an daughter auto driver's daughter being crowned as Miss India, and that was really shocking. And sometimes when we've heard about we've heard Sushmita Sen basically, who was Miss World also, and Miss Universe basically. She had very very less resources, but how many stories like this, like how many stories do we see? There are very very few where the stereotyping of the professional choosing of careers have been broken, those barriers, and gone forward. For this, we need to understand how much or how or what is happening at home basically when a child is being born. Even now most of the South India, we can say that is influenced by the fact that you have a girl, she has to be a doctor. If it is a boy, he has to be an engineer. Not necessary, it's not as, and sometimes specific engineering is also chosen depending upon the kind of play toys that the child is playing. Sometimes the child is very very he's playing with a screwdriver or something, and then the parent understands or puts some conversation into the child's mind, wherein he says, yeah, he's very good with the screwdrivers and things like that, he should be a mechanical engineer. But he could be doing something else. We don't give him a paintbrush, he could be good with his paintbrush too. And sometimes when the child is very good with paintbrushes and he's painting very well, we don't tell him that he could be a painter. That is because we are attaching professional career, a career to success, and that is how you make money. And that equation somehow, even if we do not expressively say that now, but it is expressively, it is very inherently and intrinsically going into the system of the child right from the time when the child has been born. Why this particular thing happens? That happens because of the fact that the child is getting feeded by the parents from home, right from the child, right from the time when he's born. They are associating professional career and a career which is straight, which is excellently, and it has a career growth, and that is how you make money. And that will happen only if the child is studying very well, if he is doing very well at school. And the rest of the things, like if he's very good at dancing, do you ask the child, or parents force the child to picking it up as a hobby rather than as a profession? Because see, still, in spite of, we have so many, for that matter, if we see certain actors who are in the field of in field of acting, they could have, they've not gone to any acting schools, but then they have, they have a backing of the parents also, but then their education qualifications are also very, very high. So, and most of the times it so happens that, a child, when he feels, or a child feels that, he is achieving independence only after he has achieved his parents' dreams, only after the parents' dreams have been achieved, or I've done what my parents have asked me to do. That is the time when I take up my passion together altogether. But then by that time, some people don't get that particular chance and get used to, doing these particular activities and getting into the worldly picture. And because of that, what happens is they hardly get any time to uh, pursue their passion. And we have clearly seen, for that matter, for a very long time now, we have seen that individuals who pursue their passion are more happier than, and moreover, they don't feel like work. And there is such an important proverb which says, if you love your work, then you don't have to work any time at all, and your work doesn't seem like work. So most of us would agree that if we are pursuing something which we love to do, we would, do a better job at it and be more satisfied at it. Because we've seen that during this pandemic situation, it's not important. The money was not an important thing. It is more of a mental health situations which we are facing these days, are also one of the contributory factors, wherein if the child is under stress and the work that he is doing is stressful for him, because that is not what he wanted to do. I think I think about a few years back, we had seen a particular ad where, we had a guest coming into the house, and then the guest says, "What, beta? What do you want to do?" The child says, "I want to be an engineer," and the father says he would want to be a doctor. So and then, there is a conversation between the parent and the child. But most of our parents, don't have this particular kind of conversation. Reasons why we don't have this particular conversation is, we already think that the child, he is a child, okay, and he will not be able to take a decision for himself, and he does not know that this thing, he might be intelligent, but we think we are wise, and we have, and inherently, because we are parents, we think that we have a control over our children, and we should exercise that control, because if not, the world will take him to some other corner, or the world will distract him, and it will take him to some other this thing, some other path, and he might fall into wrong path. But that is not the perspective that the parents should have. They should have a very, very supportive, supportive parents. And because the children who have had supportive parents, who have been supportive of their professional growth and their interests, which is an important factor, have seen that, we've seen that the children have tremendously performed very well. For example, like if we have to take example, we all know Albert Einstein, but most of us don't know that his wife also had a huge amount of contribution in what Albert Einstein was doing. But on the same lines, in the same century, and in the same time period, we had Madame Curie and Pierre Curie. They both were wife and husband. Both of them had worked hard on a particular project. But Pierre Curie, when he was announced, she was the first Nobel laureate, if you remember, Madame Curie. So she was the first one to get the Nobel Prize. Where when Mr. Pierre was actually nominated for it, he said, "No, my wife's contribution is huge in this particular, the research that they had taken place." And then the award was given to her. Similarly, Einstein also had a daughter. Madame Curie and Pierre Curie also had two daughters. Irene Curie, you will see that she has earned herself a Nobel Peace Prize along with her husband jointly again, in chemistry basically. Whereas we don't even know where Einstein's kid is, and hardly is anything known about the Einstein's kids. When you see that, such intelligent parents had, obviously, it's not that, the IQ levels of the child must have been very high because of the parents being intellectually this thing. But you can see with these two examples where Einstein also was a very, very brainiest person, and Madame Curie was also of the same capability, and their children, why there was difference? The difference was that Einstein's kids were not being taken care of, and he was not very supportive and not very, they were not given the path to the opening, whereas Madame Curie and Pierre Curie were very, very involved with their kids and the way they brought them up, and that is how. And moreover, most of the times we see that the children imitate what is happening in the house. So it is important that the parents are supportive of the child. Now I will tell you how you could be supportive of your children. Basically, you can be supportive of your children in various forms. These forms are, we know about the developmental stages. The developmental stages are pretty important because of the fact that you have about these developmental stages. We can understand whether the child is growing in a particular fashion or the child's growth is normal or not. We have them divided into various stages, and they have their own milestones. Especially we tend to use, we think that the this thing is about the developmental stages or stages of development is only for the fact that there are about it's only for the doctors to find out if everything is right with the child or no. But these particular developmental stages are very, very important from the parents perspective also, because see, if you understand that at a particular age, if the child is not given a particular kind of a food, that is especially the nutrition, his physical growth would be stunted. Similarly, please understand, parents and students, that if a child is not being given the right kind of emotional support, which is required for his brain growth and also for his mental health, then the child will not be able to succeed in life. It's not just physical, this thing, and just the academic part of it that you give him, but also the emotional support and the emotional requirements of that particular age will have to be fulfilled. And what is that? I have a 777 formula. I've divided each particular, because I'm a mother of three and I have three kids, and I'll tell you the story about my kids also. But then there are 777 years. I've divided it like this. First 7 years, you have the children for 1 to 7 years old, and then we have 8 to, what is the other seven? 8 to 14, and then you have 14 to 21. So basically these particular ages we divide. And why am I taking it until 21 also is a particular reason being that we still don't allow our children, in spite of children being adult by 18, we most of Indian communities do not allow children to take most of their decisions, which is why this kind of perspective that I want to build. Now, what are the physical requirements that is required at the age of 1 to 7? Each one of us knows that the children have to be well fed and they have to be given good nutritious food and everything else. Now, what is the nutritional food, or what is the kind of support, or what is the kind of emotional support that needs to be given at this particular age? 1 to 7 is a child, when the child is looking for security. Basically, at that particular age, the child does not want to interact with others. He tends to be very homely, and that point of time, that is where both the parents, I'm not saying a single parent, but both the parents, or at least one parent, should always be available for the child to make him secure. That is the first requirement of a child before who's between 1 to 7 years of age. He wants to be secure, he wants to be protected, he wants to be nourished. And moreover, the responsibility of a parent is always, remember, please parents, that there is no control. Because he's your child, you don't have control over him. It's not a puppet, or he's been gifted to you basically by the Almighty, by the Creator, for you to just take care of him. Because whatever is his destiny, whatever he is to achieve, all these particular things, in if we have to take it from the religious perspective, is destined for him. You are only required to nourish him and show him the right path. Do not try to control kids, basically. Now, 1 to 7 years, as I told you, they require a huge amount of security. And one parent, as I said, should always be available for taking care, protecting the child, all the time, and giving him that kind of a secure feeling that, we are there for you and we will take care of you. And that is how you build this. Now the next 7 years, the child slowly starts opening up, and that's where, after 7 years, most of the children get into their class 1 and start interacting with the others. In this particular stage, the children need to learn the difference between what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. You teach them all kinds of perspectives, from the religious perspective, from the worldly perspective, from everything. And moreover, remember that 7 to 14, this is the age when the child is ready to learn, grasps very fast, learns very fast. He's like a sponge. And remember, what does a sponge do? If you have a sponge and you put it in clear water, you will be able to squeeze it out and still drink the clear water. If you're going to give him the environment of a dirty water, you put the sponge in the dirty water. When you squeeze out, there's going to be dirty water only for you. So that is how a right kind of an environment with a right kind of a mix, where the child is being taught. Remember, he needs to be taught. He needs to be told what is the right, what is the wrong, what is the good, what is the bad, what is the right path for him, by various methods. Now, how do you do it? And that could be through stories, by giving him a very good environment. If you do, if you remember, there is an African saying. It's an African saying. It takes a village to bring up a child. Have you ever thought about it, about these nuclear families that we live in? We hardly bother about a child being. It is not an easy task to bring a child, because he's a creation by himself. He has his own individuality. The child is born individually, and he has an individual personality that will come out and flourish only if it is being nurtured in the right kind of environment. And that environment is necessarily cannot be provided only by the parents. It is a school. It's the choice of the school that you make. It is a choice of friends that he makes and you correct. It's very, very important that the parents know the kind of the kind of peer group that he has been forming. Why I'm saying this particular thing, that parents keep in touch with all his friends and know his friends very well. This is because it's important for the next stage. How is it important for the next 7 years? The next 7 years, it's important because the children will be influenced by peers, because after 14 they get into the main world, mainstream. And by this time, they've already been exposed to a good cultural environment, social environment, through travel, through friends, through Google, and everything else, that they start opening up at the. And now, at this is the point when you leave the hands of the child. Now, when I say leave the hands of the child, most of the parents think that, okay, we are not going to force our children to pick up anything, and we are not going to do this. We have taught it. No. Here, you're supposed to befriend them. You need to be their friend. You need to accept them as your friend. Now, because you've worked hard for those 14 years, very constantly, very ardently, very, very honestly, now you will find that the child, even if he is influenced by peers or anything, he will actually come back to you for your validation. And that is the time when you don't say, okay, no, very good, you came to me and it's wrong. No, it's not like that. You're just supposed to give him only corrective advice. That is the time you're not supposed to correct him and reprimand him, but show him the right path. Only handhold him, because and allow him to take his decisions by himself. The reason why I'm saying this is because of the fact that at this point of time, if a child even makes a mistake, that is where you just need to handhold him. Reprimanding is not going to help. And you didn't listen to me, that is how you fell into all these particular things. You should have listened to me. These kind of conversations is not, you're not supposed, that is not the kind of conversation you will have with your friend. If your friend has done some mistake, how is it that you're going to handhold him? You're going to be very, very supportive of what he's done, and then try to give him a corrective behavior, corrective corrective advice. That is where you have to do. So these 7 years is where you have to adapt to the physical requirements, and also the emotional and health requirements, and the mental requirements for the child, and allow the child to choose from whatever he wants to do, and pursue the passion, pursue his interests. And this is why this is important, more so because people have two capacities. That is, one is the physical capacity and the other one is cognitive capacity. Now we've seen that, the professions which existed, about 10 years back, they don't exist now. And moreover, the professions have evolved so much out of this thing. Like, for example, like I told you that when I started my career, I started with being a lecturer, basically, because I did my post graduation. Having done my post graduation, so I didn't want to be teaching at the school level, so I wanted to teach at the school. I wanted to teach being a lecturer. Now, having been a lecturer, then I taught for quite some time, and because I shifted to Saudi Arabia, I was teaching in the schools. And then when I came back here, I realized I had a lot of responsibilities. So I thought, what best could I do? Then I found an institution which actually supported me, and and helped me to discover myself again, rediscover myself. That is where I was an author of a book. Similarly, if imagine that, if I have evolved so much with a span of 20 years from being a lecturer, then I did a ECCE course where I was teaching very young children, because I was very intrigued by the way my daughter was learning. She was, just 3 or 4, and she was going to school, and the way she was coming back from school, nurtured and, well acquainted, which my other children didn't have. So that is something which, intrigued me, and I wanted to see what it is like to learn about ECCE, that is your early childhood care and education. And that, all these particular kind of, so imagine, from being a lecturer, I could have actually, continued, pursued the testing, and then, be a principal of some college or something like that, and pursued my PhD. But then the very things that I have done, so remember the fact that, the children are not going to be having this kind of careers these days, especially right from the industrial era. We've seen that, the physical capacities, that is the physical abilities of the individual, were replaced by automation. Now we see that, the cognitive abilities have been replaced by artificial intelligences. So now, parents see that, the child should learn artificial intelligence, so you should send the children for coding classes. If he's a little good at mathematics, he should be an engineer. If he is little good at science, you should push him to being a scientist. Or, we, and moreover, sometimes you don't even say scientist. If I just say, what is it that you want your children to be, parents would, write, like they want him to be an engineer, if it's a girl, if it's a boy, or whatever. Certain amount of gender specificity about with respect to, choosing a career path is a little reduced. But the thing is, we still are stuck in that particular situation where we should not force. Now, what happens, what are the repercussions of forcing your, repercussions of forcing your dreams onto the children? Certain children who are very obedient will pursue it. They will say, okay, as I told you that, they will say, everything else later, let me first fulfill my parents dreams, because they have worked hard for doing this. And every time we make it a point to remind them all the time, itni mehnat kiske ke liye kar rahe hain, how many times are we are working hard only for you, your mother is going to the job, I am also working only to pay your fees and to see to it. So that pressure you are building in the child, without even consciously doing it. You're only reminding him, but the thing is, you're consciously putting that particular pressure into the child's mind, and that is going to be dangerous for the child. And how is it going to be dangerous for the child? He is absorbing everything, and the age that he is in, if we start, can anybody, does anybody know the kind of proportion of seats and the number of children who appear for JEE? Today, when I was looking into it, there are just 20,000 seats, and there are 6 lakh students who have registered for JEE. Do you know the proportion is 30:1? And everybody who's writing the JEE, everybody who's filled the form for JEE, has actually undergone a minimum of 2 years of rigorous training. And you will not believe it. The other day, there was a newspaper article which stated that the IIT professors, when the children come to them, when the students come into the first year, they find them socially isolated, mentally disturbed, not being able to communicate, not being able to talk, not being able to open up, not being able to mix. Reasons? Because these children have been isolated for a minimum of 2 years. You have to prepare for your JEE, so these children have been isolated. Similar is the case with children who are preparing for NEET. In fact, I've known in one of my friends circle where, the child was, the parents were not very well off, and they invested a lot of money into the child, and, did 2 jobs and things like that, and made him an engineer. And having done the engineering, the child was, later on, he didn't, because it was not of his interest, he didn't perform really well, but still completed the engineering. And then by the time he finished his engineering and he went on to do a job, he saw that a person sitting right, and he was in a call center because he really didn't do his papers well. When children are not interested in something, they will still perform under pressure, but under pressure the performance would be very, very average or below average. It won't be to the best of their ability. For an individual to shine, pursue, it is not just the discovery of the talent, but pushing the talent to the limits where it becomes a genius. That is important. So you first of all, you're not even acknowledging the talent, and you're pushing something else into the child's mind. How do you think the child will be able to perform? And because of that, the child was sitting in the same office where a child who was, where his colleague was an intermediate fail. Because they were working in a call center, so that didn't require. He said when he went back home the first day, he was so depressed. What is the use of my degree? So much amount of money and effort and everything else that went on. So the conversation is had with the child and the parent, between the child and the parent, right at the peak of his time when he's supposed to perform. So these are the things which parents have to keep it in mind while choosing. So now here what I would want is, when the child is between this particular age group, and I said that the children are early now, they have understood what they can and what they are good at and what they can be at a very early age, because of the exposure that the children are basically now having. Like I said in the previous in the, in about 2 3 centuries, or about one or two, even for that matter, about when I was studying myself about 20 years back, I really relied upon my parents perspective about what is good and what is not good for me. And then, yes, but then I have taken advice. You will not believe it that, because I was telling stories to my kids in 1 to 7 years of age, and they were watching certain cartoons and things like that. My child, when he was asked by somebody as to what do you want to become, my eldest one basically, he said, I want to be a knight. I was like, knight? Like, he was, because he was so attracted by the stories that I was telling him, a knight in a shining armor with a sword and everything else. And I said, yeah, okay, you can be a knight, but the thing is, where are the knights now? Where is this profession basically carried on? As see, I did relate it to profession again, but then I had to tell him that something like a knight does not, exist anymore, because I was telling him a fairy tale, fairy story kind of a thing, which was more of fiction. So which is why a fictional story till a certain age is okay, it is allowed. But after a certain age, you should try to tell them stories which are more realistic, which will make their thinking process faster, which will make them think, ponder, and maybe at the end of the story, never should a story be concluded. The child should not be told a conclusion, but allowed to discover the maybe allowed to say the solution, or maybe allowed to express the climax of the story. That needs to be understood, because that will give him the perspective of, you will understand the perspective of the child also. That is where I had to tell my child, okay, knight, now where do we see the knights? We see them as the queen's this thing, queen's bodyguards are generally knights, and that is how they have a specific uniform and everything else. But better, you have to, if you have to be a knight, you have to be a British citizen, and you are not a Britisher. So I think we'll have to choose something else. And that is how. And moreover, in my house, with my kids, I have three, and all the three have had different exposure to educational qualifications. My eldest one had been to school only until class 4. After class 4, he has chosen a field for himself, was memorization of the Quran. And because of memorization of the Quran, we supported him through education, but that was through the open schooling system. And now when he's come down to the career where he wrote his 10th at the having finished his memorization, I realized, what should I do with this particular child? He's never gone to school. I did have the option of putting him into intermediate and saying, okay, go ahead and do your 11th and 12th with mathematics, because he didn't want to pick up arts and he was not comfortable with arts. So the kind of, that is the time when I sat down with him and I told him, because we are wise. Remember, children are intelligent, we are wise. So an intelligent person will be able to, very haphazardly take and not very organizedly take a decision, but a wise person will be able to tell the pros and cons of each particular. So you have to sit down with the child and express and explain to him what are the various career options. These days, in fact, we are in a situation, we are in a we are the everything is so advanced. Parents can go in for there are something called the psychometric test analysis, which can be done. Even online psychometric tests are available, which help parents understand the innate strengths, because the school is not doing, it's basically the job of the school. That is how we have the new education policy, which will help the children's talents to be coming out and be able to choose the kind of career. The new education policy will take some time for itself to manifest in and come down to a particular conclusion. But then we see that until that particular thing happens, we can have the help or take the help of psychometric test analysis, which are available. But don't think that the psychometric test analysis is something which will enter. This is not an IQ test or something, but it will tell you what your child is good at. Sometimes you see that the child is good at mathematics, he's scoring very good in math, but then but with these tests will tell you really whether really he's able to do it, and what are the suggestive, and looking at various, they does not take only academic excellence into consideration. It takes a lot of other perspectives also into consideration, and then gives a final test report. And that is not a conclusive element also. It gives the various talents that the child has, or the things that he is very good at, and it is also suggests you the kind of professions which the child would be good at. And that can also be really helpful for the parents to have a discussion with the child and sit with the child and ask him for what he is prepared to. And also, because you're wise, you should be able to tell him what it requires to pursue the kind of a profession or pursue the kind of a thing that he wants to pursue, and what you want to pursue, what you want him to pursue, or what the tests are suggestive about. Then what happens is, then you're mentally preparing the child. We push the child into preparing it. Like if a child is to prepare, or we want the child to do an IIT, then the child goes into training right at class 6 onwards, sometimes at class 4 and class 5 also. The children are pushed. You by then, you're actually pampering a child, and suddenly you ask him to do so much of a hard work. Is the child even mentally prepared? Is the child even wanting to do it? You will have to first make him aware of all these particular things. Pushing a child into an IIT course right at the class 8 is really not a great decision to take, because in class 8, how old would be the child, and how do you think he's going to? And moreover, remember the one thing, the professions that exist now will not even be existing after 10 years. They have not. The professionals, the careers have undergone such a drastic change, and that has to be acknowledged by the parents. Don't try to something that you were not able to achieve because you were not able to do it. Sometimes on the dance shows, you have when I watch the television about certain shows where the parent and the child is coming, then the the judges ask them as to what is. Nahi madam, I was not able to pursue because my parents didn't allow, so I want my child to pursue. Why? You don't know whether the child wants to dance, whether the child wants to pursue, whether the child would. But the thing is, because then it is like, Array, my mother wanted to be, so I should, I think, probably fulfill her dream. You're actually putting a pressure which is conspicuously not seen. Maybe the child wants to study and you're pushing her into dancing just because you couldn't do, and so you want to be a very supportive parent to your child, and hence you want the child to do it. That is not being supportive. That is again, in some way, you're forcing your dreams onto the child, and you are making the child do what you want to do, again controlling the child. So that control is something that needs to be given up. A parent is given a child to nourish the child and handhold the child. Handhold the child, not by force. Again, that's very, very important. You have to be a participative parent, supportive parent in everything that the child is doing right from the beginning. Have you ever has any parent ever told the child, when he's really taking care of dogs or pets or anything like that, that he can open an NGO for, or maybe he can open this thing for animals, a protective this thing for for the animals? No, we've never told them. If the child is somebody who keeps the home clean, and in fact, for that matter, if we see our boys cooking, my son used to love to play with the cooker and things like that. But then have we ever told the child who plays with these particular toys or things like that, no, you could be a good cook? No, we don't tell anything like that. This, yeah, this can be done, but it will be like a hobby. The professions are always chosen by the parents. The careers are always chosen by the parents, because you think you're wise, you think you're intelligent, and the child is not intelligent. No, don't force these particular things, because they will finally, at some given point of time, under the force or under the influence of you, even if they pursue it, they will not be good at it. They will not be happy. Because that is the reason why, what the first question that I asked was, what is it that you want your children to be? And I asked the children also as to what they want to be. They want to be happy. They want, finally, happiness and satisfaction and contentment. Contentment is, is what is required by any individual to lead a full life, to be, really leading a fulfilling life. It's not money, it's not this thing. They're all, and these days it's not difficult. Each one of us knows clearly that it is not very difficult to earn money. There are many ways to earn money, and earning money through what you are good at is something that needs to be stressed, and that is something that you need to carry it forward in the children. Be supportive of everything that the child wants to do, and try to sit with the child and express with him and have a conversation with him, as to try to make him understand that what he is good at, by being supportive, but not by being commanding, but by not being dictating, but by conversation. So that will lead to, and the bad results are really, really really, really, disturbing, especially, where students who have been forced. And sometimes, actually, even if the parents are very supportive, sometimes, what happens is, somebody has very intelligent parents, and the parents are doing really well. The child might not be as intelligent as the parents could be, and probably because the parents have been very good, so obviously they'll be very busy, and they wouldn't have been able to give so much of time to the child. And as a result of the child may be a little average or a little dull. Then he gets into the pressure to overperform, the because my parents are so good, my parents are so intelligent, what will people think if I'm not going to perform? So under that pressure also, sometimes the children tend to come, which is why the parents need to ease all these particular, tendencies. And that connection can be established only when you invest in the children for 7 7 7 years, and in a different fashion. When it is required for first 7 years, you give them security, you give them nourishment, you give them protection and everything. The second is the next 7 years, you give them education, you give them religious backgrounds and everything. You have to give the roots to the children so that they may fly. You have to give the roots to the children. The roots should be strong, so that, and wings to fly, basically. And that can be done only if you are participating. And it's not like, participative parents means the mother should leave the job and the mother should sit at home and be very supportive to the children. No. Or the father should be always be available and things like that. No, these days it's the quality time. It's the most important that the child is looking forward to with you, is not 1 hour or 2 hours. It's just 5 to 10 minutes of a real conversation that you can have with each individual child of your own. And the second thing, sometimes the children are coming under the pressure of, I had a friend who said, when her own child is being put into something, to study something, then he says, I don't want to study this, I don't want to pursue this, but I want to kill that particular cousin of mine. If I find that person somewhere outside, I'm really going to, thrash that person up for performing so better, because I'm always compared. They are the yardstick. Don't place a yardstick for the child. Don't compare them with others. Do not put pressure on the children, because you want the children actually to be happy. You want them to have a contented life. You want them to pursue something which they will be happy at. Do you think you would be very happy if you know that, your child has done his IIT and he's got a very great job and a very good position he is, but he goes to the office very unsatisfied. He does not want to work. His work is dissatisfactory to him. It does not give him any pleasure, and neither is he, performing also well. His performance will naturally, for some time he may be able to perform, but, for a longer sustainable amount of time, if somebody has to sustain it, he may not be able to. He will have to come down. So sometimes it is like, after the parents have passed or something like that, the children tend to, drop those particular professions and pick up on what they basically wanted to pursue. But by then, see, you will not be able to reach your exact goal for which you have been destined to, or for which you wanted to, and doing it at a very later stage, is not going to be really, really fruitful, or contain, that is not going to give you happiness at that particular point of time. Which is why the important thing is the children has to be happy, and how the children will be happy, they would be happy, and for that matter, you will also be happy, only if you were allowed to pursue something that you wanted to, but obviously with complete support, and the direction that it is required to be pursued. uh, I hope I have, really made my points, clear to the parents and to the students as to how they can, and if the parents, if the students are also, if they find that, they've, if they have a certain feeling that, they are not able to, withstand this kind of a pressure, they should be immediately speaking up to their parents, even if there is considerable amount of time been spent in pursuing something. Sometimes, if the parents have decided as early as, he's in class 8, and the child also thinks, no, no, I'll be able to put up the hard work, and then later on, I know about 2 years or 1 year down the lane, he thinks that, he's not able to perform. It is better that the child goes and speaks to the parents instead of actually taking any drastic steps, because we've seen many students taking drastic steps because, they've invested so much amount of time and energies in doing a particular task that, they feel that, if I'm not going to achieve that particular task, that is my end of my life. And if I'm not able to fulfill my parents' dreams, and I'm going to put them at a disgrace in front of their friends and everybody in front of whom they have said, "Ki, we are pursuing the child, and our child is doing this and that," and finally he's not able to perform, and he takes a drastic step. Very recently we've seen in US where, the child was depressed for so many years, and then he didn't know what to do because the depression was not going, he was not speaking up to his parents, and as a result of which, what did he do? He killed himself also, and he killed his parents also, because he wanted to save the parents also from disgrace. So something like that is so disturbing for us, where, the mental health conditions of the children deteriorate, and the parents are not, acknowledging these particular things. These days children are under a huge amount of pressure, especially when I told you that it takes a village to bring up a child. So the child needs an aunt, an uncle, a friend, there are various nurturing things, because he is not, you're not bringing up, though we are nuclear families, we're not bringing up the children in some isolated areas. So we will need the support of the whole community also. The whole community needs to come closer. If the parents are not being attentive to a child's behavior, or, depression or something like that, there should be neighbors or somebody who's watching the child, watching over the child, who could go and speak to the parents. And that can happen only if we as a community come together, be supportive of our children, and let them flourish. They're beautiful flowers that have been given to us from the Almighty, and let them just be those, and not be, full of bitterness and sourness, and, not being able to achieve, and not being able to be satisfied, because that is not something which we want. We all want for ourselves what we want for ourselves, we should want for our children also. And that is, the basic thing is to just be happy, and pursuing whatever you want with complete, you will be able to give your best only when you're interested in it. So by giving the best in whatever we pursue, that can happen only if we love it to that extent also. So I rest my case. If there is audience, and they would like to pose any questions, please go ahead, and I would love to be able to answer to your questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very interesting talk. Ma'am,
Thank you so much, sir.
yeah, what role would the governments have in fostering this very practical idea on the nation?
See, the government. I told you, as I clearly told you, that it takes a village to bring up a child, and that needs to be acknowledged. Because see, India is a very, very new country. We have a huge young population, and there is a beautiful policy that has come up also. The only thing that, everybody needs to be very, very clear about, the goals and requirements. See, yeah, we can we can happily say that, if we are going to call back all professionals from all over the world, who are Indians, I'm sure the world is going to come to a stop. So clearly, the government's role is to bring back Ghar Wapasi is something which, we provide such opportunities, such intriguing opportunities, and also monetary support that is required for these kind of things to happen. If we can bring the whole world to support, if we are just going to call back all our professionals back, so I guess the same things can be provided by the government here. And I hope, most clearly, most importantly, the educational policy needs huge reforms, especially because the children, and that is why, many parents are choosing IGCSE and, A levels and O levels of because of the fact that, they want the children to settle down better in various countries, that they want the child to be sent. And uh, and Indians have always outperformed even there also. So I guess the Indian education system and the intellectual capacities of Indians, remember, we have had in the first university in the world is in India. Should be proud of that particular thing. Why we not able to maintain that particular perspective? The government, I think, should be supportive of new ventures and startups and everything that anybody wants to take up here in India. Everything that everybody is getting outside India should be provided within India.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very interesting talk on parents need to stop forcing their own dreams on their children. Very practical, ma'am. And I would like to thank Dr. Sunita Gandhi again for this excellent
Yes.
format where we meet people and educators like Tasneem Khan, ma'am. And before I say goodbye, I would just like to inform you that GETI transforms education by transforming teaching practices. Watch out for and enroll for our upcoming teacher training programs. We are launching service teachers training program this month. And we'll be hosting several other programs. For this, please visit and get information from our website, getilearn.org, GETILEARN.org, or call 740840100. Repeat, 740840100. Thank you so much and goodbye. Good evening, good night.
Good evening, everybody,
Goodbye.
and thank you, Mrs. Sunita Gandhi and Getty Learn, for bringing me onto this platform and giving me this platform to speak to parents and students. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you, ma'am.
everybody, and a great weekend.
Thank you, ma'am.